Welcome to this month's wellness webinar, where I'm going to talk about the health hazards of inflammation. And then I'll talk about ways to reduce inflammation to treat the root of many health issues. But before we get started, I want to ask you a few questions. Did you know that inflammation is the biggest threat to your health? Did you know that nearly every disease on the planet is connected to inflammation? And that chronic inflammatory diseases are the most significant cause of death? A few years ago, on its cover, a popular news magazine called Chronic Inflammation: The Secret Killer. That pretty much summed it up. Eliminating inflammation is the key to getting and staying healthy. Nutrition is the single most important thing you could do to change your biochemistry. So if you could change and eliminate a few things in your diet that causes inflammation, wouldn't you do that? Before we go into diet, let's talk about inflammation. I'm sure you know inflammation isn't always bad. It's how your immune system takes care of you and helps you heal. Like when you cut your finger and your body heals, that's acute inflammation and it's helpful. You need it. It does its thing and moves on. But when inflammation is constantly firing in response to real or perceived threats, it becomes chronic inflammation. That's when things start to go totally sideways. Did you know that inflammation and stress hormones go hand in hand? This is because chronic inflammation can cause stress hormones like cortisol to be out of balance. And then elevated cortisol levels can create an inflammatory response, disrupting how our pituitary pathway in the brain works, which controls so many of our hormones. It's a vicious cycle because cortisol follows your circadian rhythm and should be highest in the morning and then taper down throughout the day. But when cortisol stays high all day, your body gets really good at storing fat and, of course, makes you have even more cravings, especially for sugar, salt, and fat. And I'm not talking about the good kind of fat either. When the cortisol inflammation cycle is out of balance, guess what it does? It crashes your mood because cortisol lowers serotonin. Serotonin is the brain's chemical that makes you feel good and sleep better. Cortisol also makes you crave carbs and comfort foods because you need a mood boost from sugar when you're craving something. For most of us, broccoli just won't cut those cravings. Did you know that when you're inflamed, it makes you hungrier? Inflammation creates resistance to leptin. Leptin is the hormone that lets you know that you're full. So if you're leptin resistant, you're going to be hungrier because your brain isn't getting the signal to put your fork down. So more than likely, you're going to be piling more food on your plate and you don't even know why. Inflammation puts you at a really high risk for insulin resistance and causes to move the sugar you have eaten or haven't burned off out of your bloodstream and into your cells. When you eat too much sugar or when your system is inflamed, your body secretes too much insulin and keeps insulin in your bloodstream longer than it's supposed to be. So eventually your cells can't even hear the message that you have too much insulin, so they become insulin resistant. This basically slams the doors to your fat cells shut, and good luck trying to lose body fat. Most experts say if you've got chronic inflammation, you're almost guaranteed to be insulin resistant. Bottom line is, anything that causes inflammation will cause insulin resistance, and then anything that causes insulin resistance will cause inflammation. Inflammation can make you feel bloated and puffy because when your body's inflamed, you're retaining fluids. So if you're feeling bloated or puffy, or if you're retaining water after your meals, your body is sending you the message that it's in a battle with inflammatory foods that you're eating. Inflammation disrupts your gut balance. Gut-related inflammation brought on by unhealthy foods creates gut imbalances, or what's called gut dysbiosis. This inflammation disrupts your gut flora, so these trillions of organisms can't work as effectively. Then you're hungrier and you have the cravings that you don't want to have. You actually can extract more calories from your food you eat, so you store them as fat. Over time, you might even end up with leaky gut and inflammatory problems outside your digestive system. Inflammation can make you feel sluggish and tired. When your immune system is constantly revved up, and when you're inflamed, you might feel like you've been run over by a truck and all you want to do is plant yourself on the couch. And then of course, the less active you are, the more insulin resistant you become. And this is going to lead to chronic inflammation. Now, lots of things can contribute to chronic inflammation, like not getting the right type of exercise, poor sleep, and being constantly stressed out. But the biggest thing is your diet. Foods like sugar, certain oils, and gluten can be very inflammatory and cause a reaction. If you eat a lot of highly reactive inflammatory foods, your system is constantly on fire. Industrial seed oils are probably one of the most inflammatory foods on the planet, and they are in so many things you eat, probably without even thinking about it. Salad dressings, nut butters, processed and packaged foods, and meat served in restaurants more than likely contain these oils. Vegetable oils and damaged seed oils stress your body and can trigger an inflammatory reaction. If these are constants in your diet, your body keeps pounding out this inflammatory response, which puts you at a high risk for chronic disease. These oils are inflammatory because they're loaded with omega-6s as opposed to omega-3s, which are anti-inflammatory. Right now, soybean and corn oil are the biggest source of omega-6 fatty acids in the United States because it's really cheap and it's found in a ton of processed foods. So if you're eating a standard American diet, you're getting a lot of vegetable oils. So, the single most important thing you can do to reduce your ratio of omega-3s to omega-6s is to avoid processed seed and vegetable oil. And of course, that means avoiding processed foods. Make sure you get more omega-3s in your diet with things like cold water wild-caught fish, salmon, pasture-raised grass-fed meats, flax seeds, chia seeds, and walnuts. When you're swapping out corn, canola, and soybean oil, you can swap in a variety of clean oils. Think extra virgin olive oil, avocado oil, grass-fed ghee, and coconut oil. That's going to really help get the ratio back into balance. You must be really careful that when you're cooking with oil, you think about the smoke point, which is the temperature where an oil starts smoking. Some oils are just better off on salads than serving with your steak, but there's a huge range. It can be as low as 325 degrees, or it can be as high as 520 degrees. The reason this matters is that when your oil smokes, it's breaking down, and that's when it can release free radicals. That's when you get those damaged fats, and not to mention, it also makes your food taste burnt, so it doesn't taste good either. Unrefined oils like flaxseed oil and extra virgin olive oil have low smoke points. These can turn rancid just sitting on the shelf, so you're going to want to use these for things like salad dressing or for veggie dips. You can cook with coconut oil, almond oil, and ghee. These oils and fats do better in high heats. If all of this seems a little depressing, I have good news. Now that you know all of this, you can get yourself off this ride and take down inflammation. Making changes all at once can seem daunting, so let's start with baby steps, and here's how. The best way to do this is start at the source by making swaps to the inflammatory foods like the oils I just talked about. You will also want to reduce high sugar impact foods, so it's really like offense and defense at the same time. You'll be swapping out the foods that are hurting you and making you inflamed for foods that are going to heal you and lower inflammation. Think fruit, vegetables, nuts, whole grains, and lean protein. So you'll probably also lose weight as a side effect. The good news is losing weight lowers inflammation. We'd like to encourage everyone to live with wellness, with the 4 pillars of health at the forefront of their minds. Remember, other habits and lifestyle choices outside of what you eat can help or hinder your health as well. I said this earlier, but as we close, it's worth repeating. Get the right type of exercise. That means not too little or not too much. And yes, getting too much exercise is a real thing. Make sure you get 7 to 8 hours of sleep a night. And think of ways to reduce stress. The bottom line, reducing inflammation by making simple swaps can help you feel better, be healthier, and lose weight. Thank you so much for taking the time and watching this webinar. For any information about the company wellness program, please feel free to contact us at the information on the slide.